In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the Python nodes included in Dynamo out of the box. We're going to look at a few of the import statements. We'll learn what that is in a moment that come with the out of the box node, and we'll just kind of look at a few of the different sections available to us. By the end of this lesson, you're going to have an understanding of what comes with the Python node by default and understand the sections included. Not all of these sections are necessary, and at the end of this section of this course, we are going to define templates that we'll be able to reuse in the future as well. It is very important to understand all the different sections that come with Dynamo out of the box though. So with that in mind, we're going to jump right into Revit 2023 and Dynamo. All right, so here we are in Revit 2023, and we are just in the advanced sample project, kind of typical for all these lessons. And we're going to go ahead and open up Dynamo from the Manage tab and the Visual Programming panel. With Dynamo open, we're going to go ahead and click on New to start a new blank workspace. For Python, you can go ahead and search for the nodes, but it is really useful to know where they're at as well. If we go to the script section in the library, the editor subsection, we will have a few options in here for us to use. We have code block, which you can also get by double clicking on the canvas. That's not Python, that's something slightly different. And then we have Python script and Python script from string. So with Python in Dynamo, we can actually define Python scripts that have an extension of .py, save those on our network, and reference those in Dynamo. I tend to use the Python script variant of these nodes. That way I can just paste it right in. But you can definitely use this node, reference a script, and use it in that way. What we're going to do is we'll go ahead and place a Python script node at this time. Another thing worth noting is I am currently in Run Automatic on my Dynamo version. I did change that in the Preferences under the Dynamo menu, Preferences panel. You can change it to Automatic. This means that Dynamo is constantly running and it's trying to evaluate what you're changing. For a lot of these lessons, we will run it in automatic, but running in manual is wise when you make big changes that you want to see what happens as you run them. So in this case, in our previous lesson, we did change our Python engine to IronPython 2. So that's what this defaulted to by placing the node. In order to edit a Python script, we have two ways. We're able to right click on it and click on Edit, or we can double click just on the darker portion of the node as well. Sometimes it takes a little bit for that to open, and that's because on the first node that you place the first time you open Dynamo, Python has to load. So in this case, we have line numbers on the left of our Python script window starting at 1. A lot of things in Dynamo start at 0, but when it comes to text code editors, a lot of times they start at 1. This holds true for code blocks in Dynamo with the line numbers, and this holds true if you go and learn C# and use something like Visual Studio as well. So by default, we get notes in here that tell us what this is doing. So in this case, we're loading standard Python libraries and design script libraries. Specifically, we're importing the system library. So these are things that interact with the system that you're on. Pretty generic stuff. We import CLR, which is the Common Language Runtime. This one's important to have, and you do need to have this to reference other things, because this is referencing all of those APIs that let us interact with C# or .NET APIs like Revit. So CLR is really important because on line 4, we'll see that we're adding references to that Common Language Runtime now. So we'll add a note here real quick just to kind of have this Common Language Runtime. There will be a link in the resources for this lesson that dives into that a bit more, but essentially you need that one to get going with these Python nodes in Dynamo. On line 4, we're adding a reference to proto-geometry. These are case sensitive, and the yellow text means that it's a string or text that we're entering. And proto-geometry, that's all the geometry in Dynamo. So if we were to right click on our canvas and search for a cuboid, this is a proto-geometry that's available to us in Dynamo. In our case, for this course, we are in Revit, so we're getting Autodesk's Shape Manager from Revit. That's how we get all these geometries. But if you're in another product, you'll use a Shape Manager available to you in those corresponding products as well. Dynamo Sandbox does have access to the shapes if you have a version of an Autodesk product installed. So that's something else to keep in mind. Go ahead and remove that node. And we'll see that we are referencing that on that line 4. Until we get to line 5 though, we're not actually bringing those elements in to use them. We add the reference initially, so this is like loading a link into Revit, and then line 5 is like placing the link somewhere. So on line 5, we're saying from this namespace, going back to our other lesson about namespaces and object-oriented programming, we're saying from Autodesk Design Script Geometry, import an asterisk is really interesting in Python because that says everything. We're importing everything from that namespace. In this case, this one's pretty standard. This one comes with these Dynamo nodes, and if you're interacting with geometry, you will need it. If you're not interacting with geometry, you don't need it. Line 7, this comes with Dynamo. I do have a link to a resource, but essentially you're able to output all the inputs if you ever need that. Generally speaking, I delete this whole section. When we make our template in a later lesson, we'll actually not even include that because I really never use that. It is telling you to use in or in for inputs. So on Python scripts, we have in0, and if you hit the plus sign, you get more. So it's kind of giving you a hint on what to do there, but it's kind of an interesting thing because you can use that in to expose all the inputs as well. Like I said, I very rarely use that. On line 8 now, after I deleted those lines, we have the place your code below this line. So this middle section of the Python scripts kind of where all of these things happen. So if we were to say text equals in bracket 0 bracket, that's defining an input port for us to be able to use along with a variable. So that's kind of how that works right off the bat for you to start adding your code to this Python script. On line 12 and 13 in my case, we are assigning our output to this output port of Python. So Python scripts only have one output port, but you can add more values by adding commas as well. So if we were to go ahead and replace this 0 on line 13 with text, which is our variable on line 10, we will output that. You can click run in this window. We're going to leave it on IronPython 2 for now, and you can save the Python script as well. These do save in this current workspace, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you were wanting to archive these, which I highly encourage you to do, you would copy this out to a Python file, and then you can have version controlling with GitHub and things like that. So we'll go ahead and do is we'll move that over to the right. I'll take out this other input port, and for simplicity, we'll just double click for a code block, and I'll type in hello in a code block with quotes to create a string. So now we have hello. I'll plug this into the input. In Python, if we click run, we will see that we are getting that as an output now. So this is kind of that hello world code for Python, and we defined a variable and we're outputting that variable. So those are the different sections included with Python out of the box. If we were to put a comma and I'll say world with quotes, we're actually going to output another value on this same Python script. So we're going to hit run. At this point, we will see instead of a single object, we now have a list. Index 0 is hello, which is that input, and index 1 is world, which is that other text that we defined right in Python. So you can also define these values directly in your Python script, which is very cool. So that's kind of the most simple version of a Python script. In the next lesson, we're actually going to copy a Python script from the web, paste that in, break down all the different things that that does, and kind of go from there. The lesson after that will actually start to define our own templates to be able to use as well. So with that complete, you now have an understanding of the sections that come with a Python script and out-of-the-box Dynamo. You also know how to define an input, create a variable, and output that data with the Python script. In our next lesson, we are going to paste in a Python script that does quite a few different things, so it'll be pretty interesting. So I'll see you in the next lesson.